Dude, how you been?
I've been good, man. Sadly today, I'm a little sicky, so I hope that I don't
Oh,
hack up a lung on the pod. But I guess what you mean to say is how have I been for the last 20 years? Or
exactly. Yeah, since we last, hung out.
how have I been doing? Well, we'll start day one from when I
Okay.
last saw you.
Which was San Diego at that hot sauce hut.
Hot Sauce Hut.
Maybe that was when we spent that whole month there in Ramona. But yeah, remember we went to these like huts and they sold these like obnoxious hot sauces. And then we bought some with John Guerra, and then he took them back and he gave it to someone. They burnt a hole in their trachea. This is one of my, yeah, they were in the ER with like some, ulcer stuff. And dude, it was remember there was a little spoon attached to the little hot sauce? I'm pretty sure you were there. I could be making all of this up.
I sort of remember that. I remember maybe our last time together was when we when you filmed that music video.
Oh, shit.
That was actually really funny.
That's actually true. That's that or Lost Canyon, one of the two.
Did I see it Lost Canyon?
In random, 2016 maybe, 2015.
Oh yeah, and you gave me the cold shoulder. You were like,
no, dude, I got embarrassed. Your fame was just glowing.
Kidding. Don't talk to me like I'm famous. No, but dude, yeah, I guess since then I've been good. I think I guess more poignantly, I've been both so good and so bad since then, and and I think I prefer that rather than just so good. Life has been really colorful and full since then, and I think in a lot of ways I'm very glad to say that I'm not that same guy. Yeah, that I've grown in some good and healthy ways, and probably lost some douchebagisms from being 19 and insecure and wanting you to think and anyone to think that I'm something because I don't think that I'm something. And now being older, I'm having a lot better of a time just being Brian. And but you were always so authentically yourself, which was always just such a great dude. So I think I've only become more like you since then. But yeah, dude, just honestly just been doing a lot of music, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, and watching movies.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, dude. Cause it is interesting. I forget that we both were so young when we met. And
you were not.
I was old. I've always been middle-aged. Mm-hmm. And I forget that that there was just so much between then and now. Cause I think even we joke about we really haven't seen it. We know that's not the joke. We haven't seen each other in forever, but we have communicated.
It's not funny.
We have communicated between then. That's the not funny part. And I remember even thinking like transitioning from is this a bit? Is he texting me the way that we're talking? Is this a bit? Is this still Brian? Cause I hadn't seen you since in person a decade ago. And then I slowly realized this isn't a bit. It's still Brian, but you're in a different headspace. You're a different person, not in a bad way, but in a good way. Because me and you used to just joke all the time, and I never knew what was serious and what wasn't, which was great.
I get that a lot. But I will say, to alleviate anyone's thinking about that, I'm never that's never performative. It is that I'm that's a sign of affection from me, because I am about 90% joking.
Yeah.
So that is the real Brian. And in fact, if you get just as serious me at wherever we were, then I'm not super comfy with you. And I also probably don't super connect with you. So if you get full bit Brian, that's me loving you. But then afterwards, the way we've been texting and talking, the reason it's just been nothing has happened, no time has passed, is because I'm you're just still a friend. And I think if I were to be formal, Joshua, hello, how have you been doing? Exclamation points after every business question or whatever.
Right.
Then I don't know. It just shows that I still see you as just one of my day ones, and I feel like if I could hang out with you tomorrow, there would be no catch up. We would just keep going.
Right. Right.
because I've always really liked you, and that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude. And that, I mean, it means a lot, especially what you said about authenticity, someone who struggles so much about like trying to be authentically myself, whatever that means, all the time. And it's fun that you're like, that was my impression of you back then when I was probably in that same, it just manifested differently. But what you just said about like, I just wanted anybody to think I'm cool. I was like, yeah, that was me too. Like I was just trying to find a place of belonging and where I fit in this world and, you know, community. And do I have importance? Do I matter? And it probably just, again, manifested in a different way. And so it's so interesting that I was like, man, Brian Wight was so confident. He can freestyle. Josh can't. He's an idiot. Like, I'm not cool. I'm
agreed.
You know, adequately heighted. But like, I didn't have any of that. And so it's just so interesting to hear your perspective and your internal dialogue and how similar it was to mine when back then. But yeah, dude. And same thing with me. Someone the other day was like, about bits and getting a lot of shit. And I was like, well, no, that's just how I just joke a lot. And some of it might be coping and I'm still learning a lot of that. But another time, I mean, for most of the time, it's like, yeah, it's because I feel comfortable around enough to joke and to play around in these funny bits and ideas and stuff. But I do remember though, there was a moment where I'm like, oh shit, like I think this was important. It was when it was around, I think my birthday or your birthday, we were texting about something. You're like, and I remember you saying something at the end of the day, dude, like I got you. And I was like, that meant a lot in the sense that, again, we hadn't seen each other in a long time, but I don't know, no matter what people said and what people did, maintaining relationships were very important to me. And so the fact that you and I remained friends through all of those changes, because I'm definitely a different person too than when we first met and gone through all these,
God.
You know, no, seriously, thank God. And I love the way you phrased it about like, man, so much ups and so much downs, but that's the way I'd have it. Because it just makes the ups so much like brighter and more joyful, and you know, the downs super suck, but anyways, all that to say, I just remember that text message where it's like, I got you, and it felt good. It wasn't like you were gonna like, you know, fly out, we're gonna hang out every day, but like you were saying, like if we ever did see each other, it'd be like, yeah, we're just gonna joke around and just be like in stride. Which
you don't want to hang out,
you know, dude. Next time we're in Albuquerque, maybe, dude,
please. You know, you have abuela, or what is it, familia here. You have abuela.
Wait, I need to know though. Okay, wait, is this a bit? Do you actually spend time in Albuquerque?
Not anymore.
Okay. Because
well, I did. I used to a lot. Like,
okay.
It's like sort of like a quarter of my childhood. Like I picture it as like one of the settings because that's where my mom's from. And then like my entire mom's side of the family were in that same literal neighborhood, like around Sandia. And or I don't know if it's near Sandia, but that I think I told you, like off Indian School or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, but then as life happens and grandparents pass away, that's sort of like the meeting place of like, it's Thanksgiving, we're doing it at grandma's house. This aunt and uncle and cousin are coming, this aunt and uncle and cousin, and we're all descending on grandma's house. And when she passed, it was like, who's going to do Thanksgiving? Well, and like these cousins got married, so they're off with their in-laws. So did these, my sister. And then it was just sort of like, we're just going to not. And anyway, so I think since my grandmother passed away, I don't think I have been there. So, but it still remains to be a home, one of my homes.
It's I still call it home. I don't go there.
Also, I want this is for the pod. I'll want to tell the pod. I don't know why. And I don't want you to know really, because I don't want to ruin it. But pod, I have Josh's location.
Oh shit.
I don't know why. I don't know when we did this. But like, and I'm not doing this part as a bit.
This is
sometimes.
So
even when we're not talking, like in an active texting conversation, I will literally be like, I wonder where Josh is right now. and I'll just be on a tour bus somewhere or waiting for a flight or even just like waiting for my food in the microwave. I'll turn it on and it will be like, Josh is in Centennial, Colorado at this gas station. And I go, oh, he's getting gas. Josh is, he's in Denver. And I go, oh, he's probably home. And then a lot of times it'll be I-25 South. And I'll be like, oh, look where he's headed, you know? So when I say I gotcha, I'm just keeping tabs.
Literally. Dude,
Yeah.
I just checked. It says Brian
You
Wight
check. Don't ruin it.
Can see your location. That's so funny. I think it's because, dude, I didn't know how to use this feature when it first came out. So people are like, hey, share your location. And so I would do that, but I didn't know people were doing it for like a limited amount of time. So I have like 5 people on here apparently that says can see your location. And I just never went back and checked it. But I did have a roommate once that was like, hey, share a location. I was like, oh, that makes sense. We're roommates. I got home, they threw fireworks at me. So I immediately was like, oh, you're off. but other than that, I don't really remove people. But that is so funny.
I just don't do it at all. I'm sketched out by it. Well, I guess I've gotten better, but I had like a bad experience. But anyway, you're the only guy.
That is so funny.
And I'm just like, I'll just open it up, and there's just Josh P, you know, and he's the only guy in the whole continent. This one little dot, and I'm like, there he is.
Oh, I love that, dude. And you know what? Speaking of the pod, that's a great way to say, everyone, meet Brian Wight, the Brian Wight.
Are there other people here? How do I see that?
There's tons of people here, man. No, we're just, sometimes they're in the chat and they leave comments.
You're doing a showman thing. Do it again. Do it again. Do your opening thing.
No, you're good, dude. Welcome to the Sweet and Condensed Podcast, a podcast by people who love movies, people, and the magic that lives where they meet. But no, we wanted Brian Wight to come on the podcast so that we can talk about musicals because Brian Wight is a musical genius, super talented. When I met him, one of my favorite bits that he's ever had was when he has an all-black guitar, which I don't know if people know me. I like the color black and I wear a lot of black all the time. And people would shout like, nice guitar. And he'd flip it up and it said thank you on the back with tape. And I thought it was like the funniest shit.
I forgot about that. No, I forgot. That's a good little trick because people would say that a lot. But we got sisters now.
Oh, look at that. Wait, are they like twins? Like literally, like they're the same? Is this like you just need a backup touring, or is there a difference between these two?
The exact same guitar.
Love that, just in case, you know?
Yeah, you never know. I always got that bang on me.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time off a tour, and we're gonna the main movie that I wanted to chat with Brian about. I asked him what is a full watch. We used to do a whole bunch of these episodes. Now they're sporadic, but living a stream episodes where we choose a full movie that held us in thought, moved our emotions to tears, and made us laugh. And it's all based on the Jimmy V 1993 ESPY Speech rubric. If you don't know what that is or want to watch it, it's down in the show notes. But before we get into that, Brian, I just want to pick your brain because I actually don't know much about musicals. And you had mentioned that's one of your favorite genres and you love musicals. My first introduction was Grease because that's my mother's favorite movie. And so between Grease and La La Land, that's I've seen some other ones, but why don't you share a little bit why musicals?
Well, first of all, to you and to the pod and to the listeners, thank you so much for having me on for a multitude of reasons. One, I'm actually a massive fan of you and this podcast. Like I am a avid listener. And two, you reaching out to me and inviting me for this one for musicals is like the funnest of the fun and the honor of honors because like it's one of my favorite things to go to battle for musicals. I think in our messages I had told you like it's one of the most divisive genres because like you're either what I always tell people is that you were either there and you get it. You're either like in the trenches in high school fighting for this and being persecuted for being a musical person, or you're like everyone else, which is like, stop. Like, why are they singing? And here's the thing. I totally get it. Like, I'm not a person that is like, how could you not like it? Dude, I totally see why people wouldn't like it. And that's almost the reasons why I like them so much. So it's an honor to get to do that. And I have so many friends that know more than I do that teach me about this. But like, I'm happy to be a mouthpiece just because of how passionate I am about them. So thank you so much. Now, to answer your question precisely, I was so excited about being on this podcast that I typed up a thing about this question.
Okay.
I'm reading my notes here.
Love
Your
it.
question was, why musicals? Okay. This is what I typed up because I'm so serious about this. Movie musicals have a unique charm because they blend two powerful forms of expression: storytelling through film and music. And here's why they resonate so well. Emotional amplification. Music has the power to intensify emotions. In a movie musical, the music acts as a bridge, making emotions more visceral. When characters sing, you feel their joy, sorrow, excitement, frustration on a deeper level than if they were to just speak it. It's like hearing someone's inner thoughts, but with a whole new layer and expression and vehicle of expression. Not just the words, not just their meaning, not just the tone and how they say it, but with chordal melodic information that also, even if it was a different language, you could hear sadness in minor chords. You could hear elation and like rising crescendos, So that's a whole nother vehicle for expression. And you can hear anger. You can tell who the bad guy is, even if you don't understand music. And Les Mis, Empty Chairs and Empty Tables. The guy is crying as he's singing this. You can talk while you cry, and it means a lot. But if you cry while you sing, there's nothing more heartbreaking than that. Okay, escapism and fantasy. Musicals often take audience into a dreamlike world where anything is possible, allowing for a break from reality. The fantastical settings, vibrant costumes, and extravagant choreography can be a joy to watch. Where even, and this is some of my favorite musicals, where even the mundane can be turned into a colorful spectacle. It's fantastical. There's a scene in Tick, Tick, Boom where they transform this whole diner into like just, and Grease is like that too, where it's like, Grease is a perfect example of just total camp. All of this is fake. All of this isn't real. Exactly. I want that escapism. But it's amplified more by the fact that there's choreographed numbers. They're on the tables. Everyone seems to know the moves. There's nothing further from your mundane actual reality than that. Love that. And then I have more, but narrative depth, I could talk about that. And then cultural connection. In the Heights is this big, like, Lin-Manuel. He's I learned more about the like Latin experience in Washington Heights of New York from catchy songs than I would have if I read it in a book. And that's on me. But then like, you will understand was your mom better if you watch Grease, because that's like a whole expression of something. Phantom of the Opera. Anyway, and then a sense of community. There is, and this is a big one, there's a feeling of unity that comes from watching a musical, especially when the characters are performing together. Even when the songs reflect personal or struggles or emotions that are unique to them, the collaboration in the musical gives a sense of collective experience. And there's nothing more fanning the flame of narcissism and being a dramatic four than this, to where like I'm singing the like sad number about my, or the opening number, like I want more in this life and I was made for more and I got to get out of this town. There's some, like, that's my own struggle in communication, but like the whole town is coming together to like sing BGVs and do the dance behind him. There's something that like in me that goes, the whole world is revolving around him because the mailman is doing the dance behind him. Everyone's stopping what they're doing to support what he's saying. And since I was a little kid, I'm like, I mean, that's my dream, is for everyone to like back up and revolve their lives around my number and around what I have to say. And it's cool. And the other part of unity is like, and this is the last thing I'll say. When I say the trenches, you either love musicals because you were there, you were in The Music Man when you were 5 or Oliver or whatever, and you were made fun of, and you're in middle school, high school, and you're in it, and the kids are making fun of you, people are rolling their eyes at you. Like, that's happening for sure. But you know who's not making fun of you? It's your castmates who are being made fun of too or whatever, and they're fighting tooth and nail over the lead part. And it's the world. It's the thing that matters more than anything. It matters more than prom. It matters more than everything. And then it doesn't change when you're an adult. And it's very fun that all of us agree, even as adults, that nothing matters more than this. And I don't know who wrote that into law, but it's like, it's this thing. So then when you're out of school and you're just a person in the world, you meet another person that looks like a unicorn, that they're cool and like they can talk musicals with you. Like, I can't tell you like how quick it's like, ooh, we're in. I really like you. Really, if you were there, then there's a lot more than you get about me than I even need to find out. So anyway, that's why they rule.
Dude, I think I'm having a La La Land moment where I start liking musicals more because you like musicals. Just like,
dude, La La Land, first number where they shut down the interstate in LA, and everyone gets out of their cars and is doing this ridiculous dance number. What is that song? Dun 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 dun, whatever it is. Another Day of Sun. That's unity, because it starts in the traffic. Everyone's, hey, get out of my way. Hey, I'm late. Everyone's listening to different music. Everyone's having a different story. But then when the musical starts, no one's different. They're all doing the same moves. They're all stuck in traffic. And now everyone's unified. And that's just beautiful. Okay, carry on.
That is so funny because, I just rewatched it, and that opening scene, I just remember feeling like, or thinking about mostly, did they actually shut down the freeway and cause all the backup in traffic? And
they did.
I was thinking about all that stuff. And so I like this framing you're doing of unity rather than like me and myself just thinking about myself and how much I hate traffic and driving. But we might have talked about this before, but I seemingly have forgotten. You're a 4 as well?
We've talked about that. Yeah.
Okay, this is starting to click and make sense, because I think the way that you were expressing too about musicals being able to take the mundane and turn into something beautiful is a very, common thing with 4s, of like trying to squeeze out the most out of life and refusing that, we live different lives, we're trying to be seen or understood. And these mundane moments, like for myself, I'm like, they're not mundane. They're like, they got it. They're part, and they're connecting the special moments, kind of like we were talking about earlier about the ups and downs and the valleys and the mountains, and like how we rather have that because, and everything in the middle, if you're just good, I'm like, I don't know, is that art? Like, shouldn't art move people to the extremes, and shouldn't life be art? And shouldn't I feel the extremes of, you either love it or hate it, or you're extremely joyful or you're extremely sad? Like, I get bummed if I'm like, I haven't felt some deep sadness in a while, because I think, again, I've said this multiple times, but it expands expanding my grief expands my joy, and I'm more capable of engaging with life. And so the thing that I was going to ask about yourself, and was it music? Because music's also an expression, and 4s typically, they like the heightened things. They're very intense, very dramatic. And like how you were saying, was it music you first loved because of expression, or was it movies because of escapism, because of these in-between realities of, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if it was like for you similar to me of like, I just felt like I'm misunderstood. So I'm like going on the edge of these different worlds because I want to see into something that is different from my own, as a way of, seeking like, where do I fit? Who am I? That kind of, inner work and inner dialogue. Or did you, because I know you've been involved with music for a long time, so I guess that was a long way to ask, like, which love came first, and where did they converge?
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it would have to be music first, because what I know to be my earliest memory of cognizance is, I think I was 3, and I remember like hearing the Beach Boys on my parents' like stereo in the living room, and crawling up to the piano bench and like poking it out, playing along to it, because I was so struck by what I couldn't call anything other than magic. And what I know now the magic was harmony. I was like, how was that so beautiful? And of course, it wasn't like a beautiful song. It was like, I think it was Little Deuce Coupe, a song about a car. Or it could have been Help Me Rhonda, which is a song about, I have no idea, I guess about Rhonda. But at 3, I don't know what they're saying. But the way that the music sounded was like so emotionally stimulating to me of like, when there's a minor chord, that's how I feel. When there's a dissonant chord, that's how I feel. And again, I don't know what they're saying, but like I'm feeling like the way it sounds is how I sound in here. And so like that keeps going. And music for me, beyond words, literally just like music beds and motifs, I feel more understood by, let's take La La Land, that that has no words. That's not something that I go, oh, I agree with the like, because it's not English, but I feel agreed to by it, that it sounds like how I feel, because it's melancholic, it's rising, it's falling. And I hear something like that and I make something like that and I go, that communicates and expresses how I feel better than words could, certainly better than I could. So that was first, but then movies came along to be like, I'm watching a character and I'm going, that guy's me. I'm not in his shoes. Like Into the Wild, Emil Hirsch, I can't remember who directed that, but I go like, yes, same. And like, I've never been through that and I'm never going to go through that, but I go like, me too. But then you can, and then like Harry Potter is the protagonist and the chosen one and all these things. I'm not that, you aren't that, but it's fun to at least feel like in my head I'm the chosen one, and here's how it plays out on screen. And but then like and also in movies in so many ways that like I don't understand the thing or the person, but I'm enamored with it, and I think it's just so captivating. And it's just it's the best vehicle for, I think, story. Now, when did they come together? Man, I think it might have been Moulin Rouge. I was in like middle school or high school, and they're singing this like sad song to each other. And it was like, oh, it's so pretty what I'm hearing. And like my music brain is like, that makes me cry and emotional. But then now my movie brain of like, he's desperate for her and he keeps getting rejected, I also relate to that. But there was something about like having both of them as partners that felt like it was really navigating the entire spectrum of humanity, all five senses, but then plus one more, which is a sense that like in music, I don't even care if you're not a musician, that you go, ooh, that dissonance sounds like tension, that sounds like anxiety, that major chord sounds like relief and reprieve and happiness, and then minor sounds like sadness. But like that being like an extra power up to the actual words and story and narrative is like, that gives everyone, every human, like the full gamut of feeling. And I think as far as storytelling goes, like putting music and visual and movies together, I think that is the culmination of the full expression of art, because it's just every single thing. It's every sense. I guess not smell, but anyway. So I think probably Moulin Rouge. It could have been before that, but that's when I felt like, that's when I first felt the tingles of like, oh, I believe him more, and I'm more sad for him as I'm seeing him like sing through, like speak what he's saying through, like in a beautiful melodic way. So sorry, I'm going to ramble a lot during this.
No, please do. Yeah, no, this is amazing, because I think, yeah, that's especially because songs, you know, when we're talking Baz Luhrmann, yeah, and so weirdly enough, Sean Penn did. I did not know that. I just learned Sean Penn did Into the Wild.
He directed it.
Yeah,
beast.
Yeah, but you're saying something I think so fascinating about when you're communicating, and I'm trying to express myself. It's so interesting because if I'm using words and just in conversation, I can be more direct, but music's more poetic. But yet, it's a language that expresses something that you can interpret and feel, and it's both this participation between audience and the person singing, right? Like I think they're both working actively together, and they can draw to different conclusions. And I just think that just, at least for me, for someone who was kind of averse to musicals for a long time, because I was like, I don't understand it. What is it? It's not my thing. And I don't know. And I'm going to take a dramatic giant leap here, but you know, they were foreign, they were different. And I think the xenophobia culture that we can sometimes experience here in the States is just that, like, fear of the unknown, fear of what is other, and something about like what you're saying about language of like that music said something how I feel on the inside, and it communicated something without words. It's just the La La Land, or In the Heights communicating a culture of people from New York more so than a book or text. And there's something that's so beautiful about that, in that like I never thought of going, you know, into a musical to learn about a culture and a people and how they communicate their existence. And that's what it feels like. What you're saying is like this music communicates my existence and my all that I am in my being, in the same way that this, you know, Latin culture in New York is being expressed through this pop culture musical. I don't even know who's in it, and unfortunately I haven't even seen it. It's just, anyways, you're connecting a lot of dots and things for me. I'm like, oh, this is a really amazing thing. Like, you know, with West Side Story, I didn't see that, but you said it was one of the most slept on, you know, musicals. And you know, we could have been pandemic, could have been 2020. It could have been a lot of different things. I know Ansel Egglesgort, I know he was in some trouble under hot water, but then also it had Rachel Zegler, who was like like unknown, right? That was like her first
movie. Yeah.
Which is why, so there's all these different variables that could have played to the fact that this wasn't like a big bit, even though it's Spielberg, right? So I'm like, anyways, but all that to say, I'm connecting all these dots. I don't know if you wanted to say anything more about like, yeah, like, is Spielberg's movie and your thoughts about it being underseen or underrated, not talked about enough? Is that a part of the divisive genre in the same way that like Dear Evan Hansen, or is it a divisive genre because of like culture on movies, or is it because of adaptation, or is it because some of these are like, right, West Side Story, Dear Evan Hansen, Wicked, these are like staples, right, in the world of play theatrics. So is it divisive because of that reason? Like it's sacred texts that people don't want to mess up, or they get adapted in ways that people don't want? Or is it divisive because of everything you're saying about like it's expressive, it's emotional, it's feeling, and it like is pushing people to the extremes, and that's why it's divisive? Because some people are like, I love it, or some people are like, I hate it, and you're like, I get it, I understand why you'd be on either side.
That's a great question. Why is it divisive? Well, and I want to add one more thing to what we were just talking about in the last question, to something that you said. I want to make sure that I'm not just like a music homer, not just a music home team. I'm not only saying that like, oh, film is made better because of music. I'm saying it's like both are made better with the other. Like,
yes,
like even though I'm a musician and like that's my home base, like of course, like this story is going to be more captivating if you also include melodic expression into it. Sure, we covered that. But also, as a big movie guy, like music itself is made. Why do they make music videos? Because all of your senses, like movies, just this and just this, fine, and music, just this. But like the visual, that's a music video. But like music is made better and made more compelling and more emotional when there's movies with it. Because for I'll go back to Moulin Rouge. There's no original songs in Moulin Rouge. It's all like, it's sort of like readapted, rearranged sort of cover songs. And there's this, the most famous song in Moulin Rouge is called the Elephant Room medley, which is just a medley of all the love songs, Elton John and others. I can't remember right now, but like I knew all those songs before I saw the movie. Didn't really care. Didn't really hit me that hard. But something about them in the context of the movie made those songs better. And not just the way they're arranged, but like in the story of what Ewan McGregor is trying to say. Now I like those songs, and I only like them in that movie. So I only bring this up to say, like, I'm not just a music homer and saying that like movies are made better with music, but also music's made better with story and movies. So anyway, I wanted to cover that.
Well, I just want to say one thing, because it's so funny. I've had the opposite experience, but I agree. We've landed in the same point of, I agree that motion pictures are made better with music, and music's made better with film and story, in that I didn't know I'm musically declined. I've always joked about that. I've always joked with you that I've always wanted to be a touring musician, not because I want to play music necessarily, but I want to tell stories in between the songs and sets and at concerts. Because that's like some of the best part. Like like you can go to a concert and see an awesome musician, and again, it's great. Also, the storytelling, narrative, whatever, true story, made up story, it makes my experience better. I'm going to say that. I don't know if it makes everyone's experience better, but it makes my experience better. So I've always been fascinated by music, but I don't know any of it. Like I've tried to read music, I try to learn, and I'm sure I can try harder, and maybe I'm not committed and I give up too soon. But film score has helped me fall in love with movies, it led me to film score, which has led me to like beautiful, amazing music that I'm like, oh, this is like more than just glue. It's holding things together, but it's also adding.
Well, I was just about to bring that up. I mean, like, Interstellar is incredible for sure on its own. But like, do you know how much less good it would be without its score? And I'm not saying like, and let me tell you, I don't know either. We just know what it is with it. But like, if you think about like how much more compelling is that corn scene with the score and the water planet with that music,
the 360
it's amplified. Yeah, it's amplified by a million.
Yes.
And then like, but then even when it's like less dramatic and kitschy, like or more kitschy, like Garden State, like something like that, where it's like, oh man, or 500 Days of Summer, like the music that's just some Death Cab song. Like, oh man, that brings me into a more melancholic and Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, where it's like, oh, when they're playing this song I've never heard of, but it's this dingy Brooklyn punk song, I feel like I'm there now, you know, instead of just like images on a screen. So that's part of the glue. Right. But you asked about why it's divisive. Yes. And I think it's, this isn't actually, I don't think, going to be a great answer. And I'm probably going to think of a great answer tonight while I'm in bed.
Perfect.
And we'll restart it then. But
perfect.
I think the divisiveness comes from what you already mentioned, which is the xenophobia different thing, to where I'm a normal guy or girl and I know movies and I know music and I'm cool. The person that says like, oh, he could never make that shot or whatever, or like in Star Wars, it's like, there's no way the ship could do it that fast. It's like, well, of course. But like, it's the same person going like, why is everyone stopping what they're saying and they're singing now? I'm totally brought out of the realism of this. You know what I mean? And like, oh, now everyone's dancing. Like, this isn't real. And it's the suspension of disbelief. I'll tell you a story. I remember seeing Finding Dory, and I'm watching it, and there's a couple like, that's a bit lazy writing right there. That's some lazy writing. And they go to the aquarium, and first of all, they're out of water. I don't know how they're existing, but they hijack a stroller, and I think Marlin is like in a fish tank in the seat of the stroller, and an octopus is like Flintstoning the stroller around. I'm already like, nah, okay. Anyway, they go from tank to tank. They save Dory. They then steal a truck, and the octopus is operating the pedals, and the fish are steering the. And oh, of course, the bridge is closing, and they ramp, and they like into the water. And when they ramped and landed it, I stood up in the theater, and I said to my friend, "No way, that just could not happen. There's no way that the truck could have made the gap." And my friend says, "It's talking fish. Like, where is that where it started for you? Was the truck?" And I realized, like, oh yeah, if I'm to enjoy this, I'm supposed to like not just like sit in the hot tub up to my waist in escapism. You need to go all the way in. And if you're a guy that's like upset by musicals, it's like, well, why are they singing? It's like, if you let yourself, I guess, I'm not saying believe that this is real, but like, I guess you just have to be there to be like, if you grew up with musicals, and I don't want to say that it's too late for anyone, but like, if you just see, I guess this is, I don't, when I watch that, I don't pretend like this is actually happening. I switch sports to where like, if I'm watching I don't know, some A24 movie where it's like, wow, this is very real. This is like Creep or something, like what is it, Mark Duplass. It's like I'm basically watching found footage or something, but like I switch sports to where like this isn't basketball, this is baseball, and part of the sport is everyone getting up on the table and dancing. And if I'm cool with that, now judge how good the dancing is, and you're gonna love it. So I don't know if that's a great answer, but I'll regret that later.
No, it's I like that. Like, you know, you have to bounce a basketball in basketball, but you don't bounce it in baseball or other sports, right? There's just different laws and different rules. And so I'm tracking, I think, right? And so that I like that because
I think if you go into Wicked and you don't know that they're gonna dance on the tables, you're gonna be upset. Like, am I a child? What's happening?
Right.
But if you go with the mindset of like, this is the sport, okay, how good are they playing? You're gonna love it.
Right. No, and I think you're saying something that I'm trying to fall back in love with is that movies are movies. They're magic. They're a spectacle. Like, they don't need to be real. I don't want them to be real. Like, if people talked in movies how people talk in real life, it's not going to have the same spark or the same, because no one has that perfect answer, that perfect response,
Sorkin.
Unless you're Aaron Sorkin.
Noah Baumbach. Their dialogue is straight from reality for sure.
But I would say this, even with it is, but yet it's still symphony and it's still conducted. It's real life dialogue with done at a pace though that's like that is unrealistic. Like, some of those fights in Marriage Story, Noah Baumbach, and some of the like walking and talking segments from, is it Newsroom that Sorkin did? Yeah, he did West Wing and Newsroom. West Wing was the older one, the original one.
Either one of those, or like the fights in Marriage Story,
right?
Or like even like Arrested Development. Like, some of the dialogue in that is musical,
right?
To where it's like, look how quick that is with Sorkin as they're walking and talking. Marriage Story, how it's like, great point, compelling, emotional response. That's like, it's kind of singing what Adam Driver is doing, and it's like a duet. There's no music to it, but like, if you put music to that, like you're 99% there already. So you're right that you're finding musicals, you're finding like just compelling dialogue musical, and you don't want it to be real, because how you fight with your wife isn't going to be pretty or musical, you know? And so we like it. We want it to be escapism. And if it isn't escapism, then like, that's probably a bad movie, because you could just have that in downtown Albuquerque, you know?
Right. No, exactly. And no, that's a great, I hadn't even thought about like Marriage Story. I just watched that clip where things escalate, where it's like, they're yelling, he hits the wall and it gets a little higher. And then he just screams like, every day I wake up and I hope if my kid can be fine that you die and you get hit by it. He like just says some like very, very dark stuff. And then that's almost like the crescendo to the next stop, where it just dips down, where he breaks down. Yeah. And all of a sudden they're together.
He says, you're not mad that I slept with her. You're mad that I had a laugh with her. And that's a song lyric. Right. That's what he says in that little hitting the wall thing. That's beautifully said.
Right. And so I think there is this deception sometimes when we watch Marriage Story. We'll say, oh, that's real life. Like, and when you watch a musical, it's like, oh, they're breaking down songs. That's not real life. When in reality, neither of them are. Like,
sure.
And so I think that, I guess I'm kind of like saying, yeah, I think I agree with you. This idea of like, even more so, because I find myself, I watch an M. Night Shyamalan. I just watched Trap last year, and I was like, how do you get in that car so fast? How do you get out of this? Is not a good movie.
Can't touch that one.
And so, anyways, my point is that I'm like, wait, but it's a movie. It doesn't need to make sense. Like, I need to let myself fall into the flow of things, and to bring it back to La La Land, if you want to dive into that, just because like that was one of those movies that I love the narrative. I love Ryan Gosling. I love Emma Stone. So when I first went into it, I put up with the musicals. I'll put up with the numbers because I was following the story and I really enjoyed it. And also I saw Whiplash and I knew it was Damien Chazelle. And I was like, I'm going to watch everything that this man makes. And so when they start floating in Griffith Park, I was like,
Was Whiplash first?
Whiplash was in 2014, and then he did that was his first feature film.
I didn't know that. Okay.
And I was one of the people you just said, where they start floating in Griffith Park. What's that thing called? The
Griffith Observatory,
where they start floating. I'm like, it took me out because now they're floating. The numbers I can, singing I can deal with, but you're floating now. But now as I've matured, no, I'm like, I like this. It's good. So anyways, just to transition, I guess, into La La Land,
Well, let me just say what I said about knowing the sport that you're going to be watching. If I'm watching Interstellar or something and it's quite serious, and all of a sudden he goes, but we have to get back, and they start floating and dancing, and they go, because it's important, because my son, Casey Affleck, then you're out of it, because you went into the Christopher Nolan movie not expecting singing and dancing. And if they do that, that's Joker 2, okay? That's what I'm talking about. If we went into Joker 2 being like, this is another musical, and like the one before, then we're maybe going to enjoy what,
right.
But it's exact. Joker 2 was what happens if they start singing and dancing in the middle of some scene in Interstellar. Me as a musical head, I'm out of it. I don't care about it. I hated Joker 2. But you go into La La Land, and you go into Wicked, you switch gears and you go, in this movie, they're going to get up on the cars and sing and dance. How good, and I'm ready for that, and I'm expecting it. How good is it going to be? You kind of go in with fairness to it. And what Todd Phillips did with Joker 2 wasn't fair to the audience. All of that is enjoyable if you're not a theater head, as long as you just switch sports in your head. They're going to be singing and dancing. That's going to be part of it. Don't be surprised by it. And judge how good I feel from these songs as a person that likes songs. Anyway, so I think that's probably the best connection and shift you can make as someone who's not a musical guy.
No, that's great. Joker 2. I hated that movie. I'm curious, if both of them are musicals, would I have enjoyed Joker 2 more or not? I have no idea. But yeah, that's a great point, because I think
I would have if the first one was that way, because it would have weeded out anyone of interest. I have no expectations of Joker 1. I'm like, what's it going to be? Turns out it's a musical. 80% of people, goodbye. The musical people that like it stay, and then they also see the second one. But what happened is he made the first one dark and gritty, and the second one's musical. Even the musical heads are like, we need to know when people start singing and dancing that that's part of the sport that we're playing. Right now, you're just making your own story feel cheap.
Right.
And it wouldn't be cheap if that was already established as part of your universe.
That's a great point, because even with Wonka, I didn't know it was a musical. And then I went into it, watched it, and I enjoyed it. But to your point, though, it was the first
world
one
where you're like, this is all silly. So
and
if
this is
sing,
all
fine.
yes. Right.
Yeah.
Well, because they sing in the first one too, so maybe that's what it is. They, or not the. I didn't watch the Johnny Depp one. Whichever one has.
I don't know if they sing in that one. I haven't seen it either.
Yeah, so I'm not
Tim
sure.
Burton.
The Tim Burton one I haven't seen, but so I guess I was prepared. But in my mind, going into it, it was the first one of this new remake world. So if you don't like musicals, you're not going to watch the next Willy Wonka, and it kind of, like you said, it weeds out the people. So that's a good point. And so I don't know. I think with La La Land, I already knew. I was way more prepared. To be a musical, and it was one of my favorite movies that year. And that was what? If it was 2016, that was almost 10 years ago. I was definitely not as into musicals.
But you were seated in the theater, ready to not be surprised if someone in the middle of a conversation starts singing.
Right. And honestly, too,
it was fine.
That first number set it up super well, because it was overly musical. It was.
They go, by the way, this is going to happen. Yes. Enjoy it if you want,
And the rest of them weren't really like that. I think that was the other thing. The very first, like you were saying, unrealistic. You're on a freeway, overpass thing. Everyone gets out of the cars. They're singing and dancing. They're riding bicycles on top of cars, blah, blah, blah. They're all in unison. And then they get in their cars. I don't think there was really a big number like that involved that many people going forward. So it's almost like when I was watching it, I was like, oh, there's an ode to being a musical with some nuance, whatever that means. And then you have a lot of other musical numbers, but it didn't feel as musical, performative, breaking the laws of reality and science.
The party scene, when they're all, her and her roommates are getting ready,
right,
to go to a party, and at the party, really cool shot. Everyone freezes, right, except for her, and she's singing. And maybe that's the only other what's going on here,
right?
But like, it's beautiful,
right?
And it also, if you want to be an enjoyer of it, you can be like, that's metaphoric, that's symbolic. Not everyone actually froze, but she's feeling like that. And musicals can, like, I don't know, show what's happening in her own internal monologue better by, like, here's her singing in this crowd of people feeling alone, I suppose. But yeah, I don't think there's any other, like, everyone involved numbers like that the rest of the movie. So it has I think La La Land is a good example of, like, still having a foot in, like, mature adult, like, we're telling a real story. But my favorite, I think, is when Emma Stone is doing her audition. I think it's towards the end. Camera's totally static, literally the entire number. The camera is static, really slow push, just on upper shoulders and face. And she performs this monologue that switches, the light switches, and she sings this whole number solo through tears. Dude, you could not write dialogue that will hurt me as much as that if you make it musical. And that scene is probably my best argument for musicals, is like I don't care who you get to write that speech, having her sing a speech with melodies like that, that's gonna kill me. But that didn't require everyone, like the mailman swinging from the clock tower singing his song. Like, it was just a little bit of, like, what if that's just kind of how she sees it in her head? Which I don't need it to be that, because I'm ready for the sport, but other people could. So
was that scene, because I believe, yeah, you're right, it is towards the end. Was that scene the scene that moved you most emotionally because of all those reasons of, like?
Yes.
Okay. What about it? Again, I guess just to say more about that whole sequence that was so moving, whether it was tears of emotion, of joy, sadness, like, what were the feelings that made you feel that heightened emotion? So what was it for you that was so moving?
Well, I guess in, like, a tier list, the numbers that are, like, the opening numbers or the finales that involve all of the ensemble and the townspeople, that's never gonna, like, get to me emotionally. That's just for fireworks and for fun. Okay. And then there's the, like, this always has a special. Well, and then there's, like, the villain song. That's more Disney, but, like, that's a trope.
Okay.
But the one that the two that always, like, in any story will always, like, have a just unlocked door to me is, like, there's always, like, a duet between the two love interests. And there's something about that, with me being a softy romantic, that, like, when they're at Griffith Park and they're like, it's what's real about it, and here's how it's poetic to real life. They don't really know each other, and they also kind of don't really like each other, but there's this, like, unspoken chemistry to where, like, they don't really like each other, but like sorry for the analogy, but they're like dogs that have to sniff each other. And and how this is communicated, you could probably accomplish this with cool dialogue, sure, but there is a much faster and artistic way to where they're up there, they're talking, they're arguing, they're bickering, and she does a little tap move, he does a little tap move, she does a little tap move, he does a little tap move. Then they start doing the same choreography together. What does that represent? That represents that, like, throughout all the covers and filters and differences, like deep down, just their bodies are in sync. And like there's something that they can feel, that they're both feeling, that like, this is a pun, but it's intended, that they're really sort of like in step with one another under the surface, whether they can ignore it or not. And then they sing, and that's a great, great song, because if you listen to the words, they're saying, I don't like you. I'm not in. I don't want this. But how pretty is the music? That's another vehicle that is, it can't help but like disagree with the words, to where if those words are spoken, you're like, okay, they are not into each other. But the way they're sung in such a pretty way, you're like, well, they are. That's what this is about. Oh, and you can't accomplish that without music. And I think that's cool. That wasn't your question, but like,
no, this is great.
But then like the solo ones, it's like the duets that murder me every time, but also like the solo ones. And there's Emma Stone singing her audition, but then in Les Misérables, Tom Hooper,
okay,
when Eddie Redmayne does Empty Chairs and Empty Tables, or when Hugh Jackman does Bring Him Home, or I Dreamed a Dream. There's so many in Les Mis, but like that is this opportunity to, in no other medium of a movie will you have a guy just talking to himself for a while. like just in the car being like, well, here's what I think, to communicate to the audience what he's thinking and his experience. You can't have that. And a great way to expound on the narrative and his perspective and what information that you need to know, or information that you already do know, but that's communicating just how much it's hurting them, just how invested they are, to make you actually be more realistic into it, to be like, man, I only believed how much she cared, he cared, they cared, because of like context of what I know about the narrative. It's third person, right? But this is an opportunity to go book mode, to where like we can go in their head to where no one else is hearing this, and they're singing for 3 minutes about what it means to them, what it actually is. And now I'm more invested into this thing happening or not happening, because like, oh, I'm moved to tears, that I didn't know that. I obviously know that you care because of the context of the narrative, but like, man, now I care so deep. Listen to you sing. And I think that's why I get them. And sometimes I'm watching it and I'm like, they're singing to me and I'm singing back to them, and I go, I know, me too. And oh, it's just the best. It's just the best.
Damn. No, dude, that's good. That's good. Man, Les Mis has, yeah, we're going to take a detour, and this is probably a loaded question, but you mentioned Les Mis and I was like, you know what? Actually, I think we need to take this detour. I don't know if you're familiar, but New Mexico Drew, sorry to call you out, New Mexico Drew, he super does not like Les Mis.
I'm going to call out New Mexico Drew. Was it New Mexico Drew the other day? Like I said, big fan of the pod, who said he didn't like the nice guys.
The other guys. He does like the nice guys. He hates the other guys. He said the other guys was like vegetables, eating vegetables, like for someone who doesn't like vegetables.
Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg?
Yes.
Okay. I thought he said he didn't like the nice guys, and I was like, I don't believe anything he has to say.
I was about to shut down the podcast if he said that. I was going to quit.
Yeah, I thought that's what he said, and I was like, whatever New Mexico Drew has to say, I don't have ears for it, but okay.
Shut down.
Now that's settled.
He appreciates, he loves the nice guys. He thinks the other guys is trash. He thinks Interstellar is below mid, but maybe, I'm sorry, New Mexico Drew, man, I'm throwing shots and he's not even here to defend himself. But the reason I bring all this up is because I'm like, I am learning so much about musicals here, where I'm like, I'm ready to die on that hill. So my question is, and this is the loaded question that might open a can of worms that might take over the rest of this podcast instead of La La Land, is just what would you say? What is some things that you would say that like to convince someone like, no, Les Mis, like this is it. This musical is for the people. You can even address it directly to New Mexico Drew. I know he's not alone in that. I know there's some tension. Like you're saying, it's a very divisive genre. And I know that there's people out there like Les Mis, far, like they're on this side totally hating it, and then there's some people that totally love it, and there's a lot of people who don't understand the opposition.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I just sort of smirk about is that like no one is going to be neutral about musicals. And I just kind of like that. Like no one's going to be like, yeah, I liked it. Like you've either seen it 5 times in theaters or you will not go to see it. And maybe like, I don't know. I just feel like people, it's not even like, yeah, you've either seen it 5 times or you have no interest in seeing it. It's like, it's cool like that. But one of the other things that I like about being a defender and fighter for musicals is that like I and everyone else that are with me who are big musicals heads, we do not need you to like them. And I think we like that to where like, yeah, it's not for you. It's all good. Like I would probably plead with New Mexico Drew to like Interstellar, to be like, are you joking? Are you kidding me? It's obvious that like this is objectively amazing. And I don't have that same drive for musicals. Like everyone that I meet, it's like, you saw Wicked 8 times in theaters? Like, that's so dumb. And I go, I know. That's great. But if someone goes like, me too, I go, then you already know. But like, I don't know if I could sit with New Mexico Drew over beers and sell him on why he should like it. Because if I lived his life and wore his New Mexico shoes, I probably wouldn't like it. But because I've lived my life and I have my brain and my dramatic tendencies, it's for me. But in order to play the game,
you don't have to, because I love that answer. Like,
well,
if you
I'll do my best still.
Okay.
Couple reasons. The reason it's my favorite movie of all time, and by the way, it's my favorite movie of all time, and I don't rewatch it very often. In fact, almost never. But because it's just you don't just throw that on, at least for me. La La Land, Hairspray, all that stuff. Like, yeah, throw it on, whatever. I don't even play the music. It's not fun. I'm not saying that. But it's important. And for me, the story of it, forget the music, which is hard to forget. The story of Les Misérables is probably the closest one-for-one illustration of the gospel story that I've come across that is not the actual gospel story. It is the most beautiful example of selflessness, sacrifice, and just goodness and integrity above all things than anything. I mean, forget the music, forget Russell Crowe. Fine, forget it. Forget the music, forget Hugh Jackman, forget the how brave it was to be one of the first where they're singing live and there's no tuning on it. Forget all that. Just the story of it. Of this guy was imprisoned because he stole bread just to feed his wife and daughter during like government oppression, hard times, and he was imprisoned for 18 years for just like swiping one loaf of bread for his daughter who was about to die. 18 years. He is let go. He then like stays at or maybe he escapes. No, he serves his time. And now, because he has on his papers, he has this black spot of like, you are a criminal, which means you're scum forever. You cannot be trusted. You are a bad person with no chance of redemption. You are that forever. That is on your papers if you ever want to get a job. So Jean Valjean, Hugh Jackman, tries to get a job all these places, an honest job. Like, well, I stole bread, did my time, I guess. And now his wife and daughter are long gone. He's been in prison for 18 years. And so now he's just suffering the consequences of something that wasn't really that bad. But as he goes around to try to just get honest work, they go, no, you've got this mark in your papers, spits at him, you're scum. Sad, 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 sad. So now he's just a homeless guy. There's no reason for him to keep living because the world is telling him he sucks. And he is going, wow, I guess I'm just trash. So he sneaks into like a barn, a manger, if you will. And it's this bishop, this like clergy member, and he catches him in there. And he goes, I'm sorry. And he goes, no. It's cold in here. Come into my home. This criminal, this guy with a black spot on his thing, Bishop has no questions for him. It's cold in here. Come inside. Feeds him this massive feast. Doesn't even ask him why he has black spots on his thing. Feeds him. No questions asked. You have a place to sleep tonight? By the way, Jesus loves you. Amazing. Jean Valjean then, in the night, says like, oh man, this guy really has a lot of trust in me. The world is telling me I'm bad. The world is telling me I'm scum, and that my only reason, my only tact in this life is to, like, I guess, be bad, because that's what they're telling me I am. So I'll use this guy who's the first guy telling me I'm not bad, and the first guy that is trusting me. I'm going to listen to what the world is saying, and I'm going to steal his silver, and I'm going to sell that, and that's how I'm going to survive. In the night, while he's sleeping, steals his silver. The police catch him, whether, I don't know, maybe a mile away, bring him back, wake up the bishop. They go, hey, this guy stole like money from you, stole your silver. What do you want to do? Do you want to execute him, arrest him? And the bishop, who's been already invited him into his house, fed him, and then was taken advantage of and robbed. What does he say? He goes, oh no, guys, let him go. He didn't steal from me. I gave him those as a gift. And now the police and Jean Valjean, Hugh Jackman, are going, you did? Jean Valjean's doing that too, going, you did? And he goes, yes. But guess what? You forgot. I gave these also. And then gives him more silver and more gold and says, but make me a promise. Use these to become an honest man. The bishop blesses him after being robbed and says, take more. So the police go, that's crazy. We know he stole this, but you're not pressing charges. So they let him go. The rest of the night, and this is where I'll stop because there's more to say. The rest of the night, Jean Valjean has this thing called the Jean Valjean soliloquy, which is one of those solo, let me communicate what's going on in my head. Now, if he doesn't sing this song, we just go, interesting story so far. By doing this song, he talks about how he is at war within himself between good and evil. He's now been given this opportunity to become an honest man. He almost has to use it because of this sacrifice, which is the gospel. He is now compelled to be good because someone made a sacrifice for him. And now he's almost upset. He's like, I was fine with just living in darkness forever, but now I'm mad at this guy who's now forced me to be good because of his sacrifice. It's amazing. So then he spends the rest of his life taking care of feeding and housing a prostitute, Anne Hathaway, and adopts her orphan daughter after Anne Hathaway dies. He has no reason to do that. He just does. That's the gospel again. And anyway, that's one reason. It's because the story. And I could say more, but I'm already annoyed with myself how much I'm going off on this. But another reason to love it is like a great picture of like humanity and unity against like big government in the French Revolution. And like it's a great story of dying for something bigger than yourself. I think maybe in America, or maybe just in today's society, our lives are about our story and what we can accomplish and what we can do for our names. Man, them at the barricades in France, all of them are just willing to die for the people of France and for their families. They're going, what I'm here for is to take bullets for the betterment of lives for the other French people. If that's what I was born to do, like that's how my name will go down. That is a beautiful picture of humanity. I'm guilty of that. Like, well, I don't know. I'm just, what can Brian be? They're going like, what can I do for a bigger thing than me? That's a great picture. And so, but then you have like Sacha Baron Cohen doing comedic brilliance with Helena Bonham Carter. And then I guess there's Russell Crowe going on, who his character is a very fun character that you wouldn't know what was going on with him without his own little soliloquy called Stars, where he was Jean Valjean's like prison keeper who knew that all he did was steal a loaf of bread. And I think in his head, he's like, that's really not that big of a deal. But my job is to like keep him imprisoned. But I feel weird about it. But he's such a man of justice that he's going to keep it going. Then after he escapes from having the silver or whatever, it is now the cop, Russell Crowe, it is now, his name's Javert. It is now his duty to like capture him and put him back in prison for stealing the silver. And but Jean Valjean's changed his name, and they're just on this cat and mouse thing. And he finds Hugh Jackman 3 separate times. But the first time he finds him, he's like saving a guy who has been crushed underneath like a fallen wagon from dying, saves his life. And Russell Crowe has to be like, that's him, but like, I'm going to let him go because he just saved that guy's life. Catches him again. And, oh, I got him. He's at the prostitute tent, whatever. What is he doing? Oh, he's like bringing medicine to dying Anne Hathaway, and he's adopted her orphan daughter. If he wasn't doing that, there would be death here. Without his existence, more bad would be happening. But it's my job to arrest him. And so there's this great inner conflict with Javert. He sings this great song where he's like, this guy is obviously doing amazing goodness, but he did technically break the law. And my existence is to uphold the law, which means I need to get him and kill him. But like, he's obviously a good man purely. So like, what am I to do? It's a brilliant song. What he does, spoiler alert, is he goes, I think there's an odd man out here. There's like, they cancel each other out. So Javert has no choice but to kill himself. He just goes like, I cannot live with being at war with like the law and this guy being obviously good. So like, take me out of the picture. I'm the only one that knows he's a criminal. So like, I'm gone. Oh, that's insane. Okay, that's it.
Dude, thanks for sharing that. I've watched that movie, and I don't think I didn't know the story. I must have not paid attention. I probably fell asleep.
Probably.
Because I didn't know any of that. But also, I'm sure you get this a lot. Do people tell you you're a good storyteller? Is that a common thing?
Sociopath, but yeah.
And so storyteller or sociopath. But no, that was very informative. I had no idea. And it's interesting that you bring up about the French Revolution, that part of it, because I wasn't as familiar, other than I knew this was about, that's it. That's where my knowledge ended for Les Mis and the French Revolution. But recently we were chatting about it, me and some folks, and they brought up the point that they're like, it's so interesting that the reason that they loved the French Revolution is because it says so much about humanity that is onlooking. The people that are watching this happen, where they're cheering for the French. Like, they're the rebels, the rebelling, and not the people that are like locally at war with them, but the rest of the world is studying it because they're looking at it because they're like, something about humanity wants the underdog and those at they're being oppressed and marginalized. They want them to win. And then we start talking about movies, because we're like, if you look at Star Wars, who are you rooting for?
The rebels.
The rebels. And if you look at all these like movies that are clearly the underdogs, like the Hobbits, they're the underdogs. Like
the Hunger Games,
the underdogs, right? And we're rebelling against the capital. But yet, in our reality, what does it look like? Is that the same? Is that what we're doing? Like, so it's just it's a fascinating
Bug's Life
thing to think about. I'm sorry?
Bug's Life.
Bug's Life. No, yes. Oh, that's such a good movie. But it's a common thing in narratives, and we enjoy it. But yet, in reality, it doesn't reflect the same, whatever you want to call it. But anyways,
yeah, and throughout that whole everything that I just said, that's like moral conflicts left and right and moral triumphs. Throughout all of that is weaved these like on the side, like incredible pure love stories. Like Eddie Redmayne and what's our blonde girl's name? I can't remember, but Eddie Redmayne and Cosette, like it's so beautiful how they like, it's not modern dating to where like you meet at your job and you're Jim and Pam and you spend 5 years of learning about each other. Where are you from? What do you like? And I've decided that I like you. Or it's a dating app and you go, to this, to that, and but they're into this, and all these things decide to like, we're dating and it's hard, and we're married and it's hard, and we're finding things we like about each other. Dude, that story is so sick, and maybe not real, but maybe more indicative of just the times of Marius and Cosette. What's her name? The actress. She rules. Anyway.
Amanda Seyfried.
Amanda Seyfried. him and her literally just see each other through a fence, and they go, "I'm in love with."
Whoa. Dude, your heart's exploded the camera. Okay, we had some technical difficulties. Apparently, heart features explode.
Don't do that.
You're the first person to ever do that, and that was the first time that's ever happened. So,
well,
good for us.
I'm glad that it happened, because even just in our break, I sort of came back to earth, and I was like, I've been talking about Les Misérables a lot, and I'm glad, because now I can land the plane and be like, it's a good movie.
Boom.
So
No,
New
for
Mexico,
sure.
Drew, you watch all of those ramblings of a madman, and you might still not be interested, and that's fine. But if you don't think that that is compelling, then you have no New Mexico soul.
Dude, well, I think it was my fault. I'm the one who took us down this detour, but we're going to get back on to the freeway here. But I appreciated your response. Back on the overpass that's it's closed down for a musical number. But I liked your response though about like that's what you love. Like movies, you'll plead for Interstellar, but with musicals, you're like, oh yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and beg. Like, yeah, that's for me.
I totally get why people don't like them. Like I get it. I get it.
Like that was such a cool way of explaining it too. You're saying like, yeah, maybe if I lived your life and walked in your shoes and wore your clothes and had your jobs, yeah, you'd probably like it. But I didn't. That I don't know. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. And
also for the reasons that they don't like musicals are literally the exact reasons of why I do. So there's just nothing to talk about.
Right.
You know?
No, that's fair. But yeah. So anyways, to kind of somewhat wrap this up, I just wanted to ask, in the same way that like clearly Les Mis held you in thought about a lot of different things. I'm curious to what did La La Land do for you that's similar? Like what was it about La La Land that held you in thought, whether it was for the duration of the movie, for days, weeks, years, something you still haven't kicked, but what are some things that you just could not stop thinking, like why is this movie one of those bigger impactful movies when it comes to ideas, thoughts, held in thought, life, whatever it may be?
Well, what's different from Les Miserables being the story itself. That's for Les Mis, that's awesome. Like I said, forget the music, forget anything, just the story, great. La La Land, it's not necessarily like moral quandaries or triumphs or conflicts. Like it's really a culmination of like the creative cinematography that he accomplishes in La La Land is so, and Damien Chazelle does this across the board. He doesn't have like a signature like Nolan's got the like silhouette from the back thing and the Kubrick stare, and then like I think Del Toro has Ridley Scott has like there's like battle scenes where the armies go like this. I don't think Chazelle has one of those, but he has this like really fantastical old Hollywood thing about him that is just so sweet and like pretty to me, and the colors he accomplishes with different scenes. Like in Another Day of Sun, she's wearing a yellow shirt and the cars are like, they're not black and white cars, they're colored, and just and even the coloring of the in post is just so nice. But then like also the what he so there's the cinematography, but then there's also like the performances from folks that aren't real singers, that like there could be arguments that's like, why don't you get singers? It's like, well, no, because part of what Damien Chazelle wanted to get was like, I mean, Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling are the best of the best actors for sure, so they can get the in between stuff no problem. But it almost carries the 1 foot in reality a little better, because this is just a girl who works at a coffee shop singing. Now, if it's Ariana Grande singing, it's like, geez, like nice job. But it's like it's Emma Stone who's and I hope this isn't like mean to Emma Stone, but she's not incredible. But that's part of what makes it, because like I believe her more that this is actually happening, because she sounds like anyone. And I think that's really pretty. And what's held me in thought about it is La La Land being about like sacrifice. What do you love more, your passion, your art, or a relationship with a person? And how it does a really good job. And I love movies that aren't just like wrap it up, happy ending. Adam Sandler movie, they get married and there's a cameo from for whoever. I really like how it's like, yeah, they ended up not being with each other and choosing other stuff that was more conducive to what they wanted in life. And I hated, but profoundly love how she ends up with someone, has a kid and is happy, and he doesn't. That is not clean. That is beautiful, because it's like, ooh, unfair. Ooh, sad. And it's almost like this movie doesn't wrap up with like what an experience. It was just like, oh man, what a Shakespearean picture of just a tragedy that really doesn't lead to anything. I love that. What it ends up saying is like, man, artists love art and they're willing to die for it and sacrifice for it. Even when they know that it is a bad decision, they can't not. And at the end, you're Ryan Gosling, I'm Ryan Gosling, really. And you're playing piano at the club that you own, and you see the girl that you almost loved more than music. And it does this great thing that I relate to, where he sees her. It's like the last scene, he kind of nods. And Damien Chazelle does not want you to think that he's going, he regrets it. He misses her. And he doesn't want you to think that he doesn't regret it and that he's like, I got this club. This is awesome. It is this both and very realistic, like, man, I wish I had her. And I have this club. I don't regret this. I just want her. And I don't regret my choices. Or maybe I do. Maybe it's ambiguous. But like, I think both of them are like, man, I gotta do my art. And having been there so many times myself, it's like, I hate this decision. I think this is dumb, but like, I have to. And it's so sad. And it's almost like they themselves aren't making the decision. It's like they're being told by their boss, their artistic identity, that they have to. And I think both of them, as they leave that little club, are going, dang, I made the wrong and right choice. I wish we could just be together. And I think the landing of the whole thing is just sort of a like, well, dang, the sandbox of the universe. Like, we could have been, but we just aren't. And there's no sense to it. Oh, well. And the movie ends with like a, dang, my mom watched it and was like, why didn't they choose marriage? Totally. I get that. But like, that's not a story. I mean, I guess it is. It's a million movies, but like, I kind of like that I like movies that end with like a, dang, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I love that. And it leaves me in thought, because I'm completely unsatisfied and bummed at the end of that. And that's why it stays on my mind much longer than like, well, they get married. I'm upset with the movie afterwards. And that's why those stick with me longer, I guess.
Right. Like, especially like the expectations of what it normally is, of saying, oh, we're going to go watch this movie. It's a romantic, comedy-ish. It has comedy and it's romantic. There's some levity, and then it's a musical. But usually in romance, we as an audience are under the impression or the agreement that they're going to end up together. And they don't. And I think that, I don't know, there's something really cool. I like,
and it's important that Ryan Gosling also doesn't end up with a girl and they go, hey,
yes,
whatever. It's so important to me that she ends up with a guy.
Yes.
And he doesn't. I don't know why that's so important to me, but it's like, that's so unfair, but that's so life.
Right.
Inside of the most non-realistic musical world.
Right.
But like, that sucks.
And I think for me, like, I think I just live in this culture of certitude. I think I often see that this society wants certainty in a lot of things, and there's a right decision and a wrong decision. Is this the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do? And I think we're always in that tension. I'm always in that tension. But what if there is no right, and what if there is no wrong, and there's just decisions? And I've been mulling on that ever since I listened to Green Lights with Matthew McConaughey's memoir. There's a part where he says something like that, like it's just about making a decision, committing to it. And I just think that what happens when we break away from that binary of right and wrong and we watch it, and I think what you're saying is very important about it's unfair and it's so life, because I think something I've been thinking about a lot lately is yeah, it's like life is unfair, but does that mean life is unfulfilling? Does that mean life can't be good?
Nice.
And I think in this movie, when you're watching, you're like, this isn't fair. But it's like, but that's our life. Like, what? But the binary, right? It's either everything needs to be fair and everyone needs to be happy, or, you know, if it's unfair, then it's evil and shit, and you can't get what you want. Because I live under the impression that life isn't fair. I will always be in that gray area of like seeking something more because it keeps me going. Otherwise, if I just sit there, I'm going to be like, because I agree. I'm like, yeah, what's the point? Like, what is the point of all this if I'm going to be Ryan Gosling sitting on this piano and everyone else is going to get the career, the art, the person, the partner, the whatever, and I'm going to be playing this piano by myself without realizing, but I also got a club, and I also got
he married his career.
Right.
And he doesn't know, and we don't know if he's allowed to regret that or not. And we don't know if he is or not, because he's sitting at this awesome spot, but he's also looking at her. Right. And there's no subtitle of going, and he knew he made the wrong choice. It's just like dang, both. Poor guy, you know?
And he can't regret it well, in my mind, I'm like, he can't regret it because the name of the place is Seb's and the apostrophe note is a musical note. And it's the same thing she drew for him, for that. So like, there's a part of me, it's like, he doesn't regret her because
regret the decision of not.
Right.
Yeah. And doesn't regret being with her ever. Yeah.
No, ever. He's like, I'll always love you. They verbally say that. But, and to your point about Chazelle's use of color, I think it's so great. How the progression of the type of color clothes they wear, and then they get in that big old fight and they're wearing black shirt, black dress. And at the end, he's wearing a brown neutral suit. And I think that's all communicating something to your point of like, it's ambiguous. And I don't know. For me, I'm like, it doesn't have closure. And maybe that's exactly what it is. It doesn't resolve. And maybe that's the jazz thing. You know how jazz doesn't really end? Jazz doesn't really start. It doesn't resolve. And maybe that's the point. Maybe this is like a layered theme of jazz. I have no idea.
There are no wrong notes in jazz.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
Do you dabble? Do you do jazz?
Yeah, just kind of all music.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think that's what's kind of fun about it. Like how he says, like, you can kind of riff on each other and play, jump in. And maybe that's my fourness. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know if that's a fourth thing, to be more in the not right, wrong. There are no wrong notes because I already feel wrong, I guess. I'm already feeling like something's different about me. But
I think the fourness is like if you're watching that as a more practical person, you would go like, well, you've met this nice person, so do what you can to lay aside what gets in the way and buckle down and start a life. But if you're like someone who lives and breathes and is willing to die for their art, I go, I get it. You can't not. You're here for so long, and you have to just play piano. You can't not do that. We can't not have that. Does she fit in that? Oh, but also I'm hearing the voice of the practical side, which is like, maybe don't play piano. But it's like that battle can never be won as someone who is just like enslaved to art. And and so I just get it, and I love. And so if you look at, like, she's also wearing, like, when they're neutral, they're both wearing neutral colors. When they're fighting, they're wearing black. When she's singing a sad song, her melancholy at the party, I Feel Alone, she's wearing a blue dress. And when she's singing about sun, she was wearing yellow. And and Damien Chazelle does that really well. Like, even in What's the movie that is better than Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Depends who that's New Mexico Drew's favorite movie or top 4.
This movie that I'm thinking, it's Damien Chazelle, and it's what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood thinks that it is.
Oh, Babylon.
The colors in that movie are like each thing of Damien Chazelle's is like like the overall color and tone and filter of it is different. Unlike Tarantino, which is like kind of always yellowy. And it's just, I love how he does that, and it's just so fantastical and it's cool. But I love how okay, so as far as right and wrong goes, like we have binaries with like good or evil, like don't steal that thing or don't kill someone. That's easy. But like when it comes to just like life decisions, you're so right that like I'm a sufferer of this. When I was like a teenager, I was like, what college should I go to? I was more worried about what college I wasn't going to go to and what I would miss out about that city. Like in the battle between moving to Nashville or LA, I was so hyper focused on like, well, there is a life that I'm going to live in Los Angeles and friends that I'll meet and people that I'll meet and a story that I'll live. And I'm more focused on like what story that I'm not going to live based off of the choice that I make rather than where I'm going to. And it was like when I would go to Blockbuster every Friday in elementary school. My mom would take me to Blockbuster on the way home from school. She'd go, you can choose one movie for the weekend to rent. And I would shut the store down. I'd be holding 2 movies in my hand. And it wasn't about which one that I was wanting to watch. It was about which one that I knew that I wasn't going to be choosing and I'd be missing out on. And that's how I've lived my life. And it's right. And I've come to be a agreement with you, which is like, unfortunately, this is almost not as fun and is not as easy. There isn't right or wrong choices when it comes to life decisions. It's like, should I marry this girl? It's like, you could, but it's not like a should. Should I move to wherever? It's like, you could, but it's just kind of like picking one. And so there could be people watching La La Land and be like, they just need to like be together. I don't know. They very well could, and they'd be very happy. Or he could just play piano and maybe meet someone else, roll the dice, and he doesn't. But that's what he chose. And you can't say that that's wrong because it's like, what if he's totally fulfilled? And there's a million what ifs. And that's what the movie explores is like just a bunch of what ifs that you could undo if you just say, ignore the what ifs, I choose Emma Stone. Or ignore the what ifs, I choose playing piano. But they will always be there, those what ifs.
Right. And speaking of what ifs and Emma Stone, I heard or I read somewhere that Damien Chazelle almost casted Emma Watson, or she was set to play this and then chose Beauty and the Beast, I think, the live action instead. And so to speak to what you were saying earlier about Emma Stone being ordinary and singing and her bringing to life, and this is not to say something bad about Emma Stone, I was like, I think she's such a great character for this, especially obviously the romance, the drama, the musical part, it's great. But I think when it comes to humor, Ryan Gosling obviously is hilarious. And I love what he's able to capture some of that like melancholy in the drama and the essence of life that they're trying to get at. And Emma Stone, this is what I want to hear about your thoughts of the role levity plays in this and how that helped you enjoy this experience when it came to laughter. Because I love Emma Watson. I think she's great in a lot of things. I don't think she would have done a good, like, I think Emma Stone's was a perfect fit, if you will, if there's such thing as perfect, in the sense that she does, like, the way her mannerisms, her acting, the way she can act with her whole body and her face, like, that brings a sass and humor, especially early on with the scene about like requesting Iran, and then she's singing it back and mocking him as he's playing at a house party in the backyard of some LA house. There's just comedy in that I'm not sure would have been delivered the same.
Emma Stone for me is, I can tell you, Emma Watson, like, I'm happy to say this, it wouldn't be any lack of skill or her not doing a good job. It would be a huge part of casting, which is like stuff that you have no control over. Something about Emma Watson wouldn't work for me because of her age. And I like that, and also like if it was always going to be Gosling, I don't know about chemistry between those two.
It was going to be Miles Teller and Emma Watson.
I wouldn't hate that.
Different movie.
But I'll tell you what works about Emma Stone is that something about her age in the movie helps kind of communicate the pity and the patheticness of like, I'm in my Toyota Yaris, or no, what is her little car, the hybrid, the Prius. And I'm like going from my coffee shop job to my audition. And I like that she's older than Emma Watson, because it's like, if it's Emma Watson, I don't know how much younger she is, but it might be like, well, she's just getting started. Good, best of luck out there. But there's something that helps the story in being like, yeah, it looks like she's been at this for a while, and she's got her roommates, and she's got her routine, and she's stuck in her car at the, and it helps kind of paint where we're at a little better with her being a little older in terms of what's going on with her success or lack of success as an actress. And then we had already seen their chemistry in Crazy Love.
Stupid Love, yeah.
Crazy Stupid Love. And so like that's just palpable. Right. But I think Emma Stone is like, there's a million fantastic actresses, but there's something that she does in that she can have a foot in like comedy, frenetic sensibilities. I'm learning this as I go, while also like being able to deliver like high gravity sadness that I saw her, and realism, which I saw her do in The Curse with Nathan Fielder. But like when she's doing those sad monologues, first of all, she's not afraid. She's a thespian. She's done Broadway and plays and all that. She is not afraid to like look ugly. What's the little things? What's the one with Mark Ruffalo?
Poor Things.
Poor Things. She's not afraid to like look ugly for the sake of the project. She's not afraid to like sing kind of rough. Whereas like maybe another actress might be like, wait, let me do that take again because I didn't hit the notes. Emma Stone wanted to like tell the story, which I think is really cool. But I liked that when I see her in her Prius, and when I see her looking glum at the Hollywood Hills party, like she looks like she's been there a while and she knows it. And when I see her visiting her mom when she's sad in Arizona, it looks like she's a little bit past running to mom and dad. And it kind of helps with the Hollywoodness of her like kind of time's up type deal, which is something that is all in the casting there. And she, even when she's not delivering lines, there's a way that she carries herself that is just like a little bit aware of like, I either need to like probably marry this guy or maybe marry someone else or get serious about a different career or something, which I think is, I don't know if you could accomplish with Emma Watson.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I think, casting that is, I like how you brought up about if it was always Ryan Gosling, because I think, there's got to be chemistry and something that Crazy Stupid Love just, oh no, it went away again. Dude, I don't know what's going on, but now it's great. It's sounding fantastic.
Well, I'm glad that's at the end.
So thank you for listening. No.
Hey! Imagine what you could have had. I look like I'm from the 2000s now. This is a MySpace video compared to what my phone was.
Dude, MySpace was the days, dude. That made me think of Dee Dee, but we don't have time. I know.
Favorite movie of the year? Wicked and Dee Dee.
Wicked and Dee Dee were your favorite movies of the year?
Yeah.
They were good, dude. Dee Dee was, it hit me right in the heart. It took me right back. Especially the multi-generational living. Like, I know it was about Taiwanese family, and I'm not Taiwanese, but I grew up in elementary school. My grandma and my aunt lived with us, and so it was a very normal, like, everyday thing for us.
Yeah.
And then I, go out into the world. I'm like, oh, not a lot of people do this, or not a lot of like American culture in the United States do this. So watching that movie was very like, again, like very similar to my own Mexican American upbringing. Anyways, so it was a good movie. But
I mean, Didi is an example of like you watch it and you go like, okay, that's me. Even if it's not exactly you, you go like, and maybe the stuff didn't happen to you. And this is like a therapy thing, but you go like, in your limbic cortex, neurologically, it might as well have, and so I just love that about it.
Dang, I don't even know. I studied psychology in my undergrad, and I forgot what limbic and cortex and...
No college for me.
See, I wasted my money. What am I doing? I'm still
Dude, no wrong decisions.
There's no wrong. You're right. No wrong decisions. But what was I gonna say though? But that pretty much wrapped up everything we wanted to chat about La La Land. And a few of the last things, dude, is just, what do you want to plug? Do you want to say anything about Brian Wight, or plug anything, or share? What is something we can put in our show notes and support you?
When does this come out?
Hopefully this next week.
Oh, next week. If it's next week, or I guess if I want to be a good podcaster, I'll say as of today or whatever. Well, I have a new album coming out this May and a new single for it coming out March 14th. But there's already been 3 singles for it that have come out over the last couple months. So the best way I can plug you guys, for you listeners, which, by the way, thank you again, is just go to Brian Wight, Spotify. Wight is my last name. And if you just go and join me on Spotify and give me like a follow on there, like, you will be in the right place at the right time when the new music comes out. And the last thing is, on this great note of the episode that we're doing, I am currently in the middle of writing my own musical.
What?
Yeah, it's been a dream of mine, and me and my friend Lauren Marie are. She's helping me with the story and the narrative part, and also with the music. But and I've always wanted to do it. It's just been such an undertaking. How do you start that? And
right.
And I think she came along and was just like, because I've written all of them, a bunch of music, but I didn't know how to connect them, and she says like, I can help that. So anyway, we're in the middle of that, and I think it will probably be done and ready for debut in like next fall. And maybe like a stage version, and then, or maybe I'll hire a cinematographer and I'll film it and direct it. I think I'll probably do that because I'm more familiar with film. But yeah, if you follow me on all the stuff, Brian Wight, you will hear about that. I'm sure Josh will tag me in the right stuff, but
all the things.
Yeah. So you'll hear about all the new music, and just thanks for paying attention and coming along.
Yeah, dude. Thanks for having me. Seriously, this was so enlightening. This was such a fun episode because, again, just getting to learn and hear, and passion, dude. You have passion. It made me more passionate about the things that you love. And please follow Brian on all the socials and Spotify. Brian does one of my favorite posts every year around Christmas on social media. It's a blast. So go ahead and follow. We got a countdown of 9-ish months. Till that,
get ready.
Plenty of time. But thanks again for listening to another episode of Sweet and Condensed. This was a Living and Stream episode. And like, subscribe, all the things, ratings, reviews, 5s or 1s, just extremes only, please. And if you want to support us too on Patreon, give us your money. Substack newsletter goes out every Friday. It's a hell of a time.
I love the newsletter.
You read the newsletter every week?
Oh yeah,
it makes me so happy.
I literally get my directives of what I'm going to watch and what I was going to watch and I'm now not going to from Sweet and Condensed, and they are the best in the biz. I listen to a lot of movie podcasts and read a lot of movie news, and they are the best, and I'm a huge fan. So thanks for having me. I love the newsletter. I love the podcast. I love it all. And I'm sorry that my one experience on it was just full of technical difficulties.
Dude, I feel the love, 1, and 2, we'll have to have you back on with, less technical difficulties. That's on me. I feel bad. And also, this last one, the monkey, not safe for Brian. NSFB. Don't
NSFB.
Don't turn it out. But till next
have
time.
me on when you get on when you do music biopics.
Ooh, okay.
Because we were going to talk about that. How I said like those are
That's
musicals in and of themselves in a way, but that's my other favorite genre is biography movies. So
love it. We're gonna have Brian back on. It's gonna be a blast.
Well, thanks so much, Josh, for being on the podcast. I'm Brian Wight, and you have been sweetened and condensed. Till next time.